Hi Booktube, Aaron here. Hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be doing the quarter year crisis book tag, and this is a tag by Roisin from Roisin's Reading. It's one of those tags that people just tend to do periodically through the year to check in on their reading and sort of evaluate how things are going. And since we're coming up to the end of April, I thought I'd better make my version before it gets too far into the year. So here we go. The first prompt here is how many books have you read so far this year? And if you're going so far this year, it would be 28, but to be strict and to restrict it to the first quarter of the year, I read 24 books in that period. Prompt number 2, have you already found a book you might think will be a 2023 favourite? If not, what was your favourite book that you read that wasn't quite 5 stars? And again, I'll give my kind of overall this year answer, but it isn't actually in the first quarter technically, so I'll give a second answer. But so far this year overall, probably my new favourite is A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermor, which I read at the beginning of April, so just outside of the first quarter. And it's just a great travel narrative about a trip that Fermor took when he was 18, 19 years old, from Holland to Constantinople. And this is just the first leg of that journey, where he gets from, he goes from Holland to, I think, like the border of Czechoslovakia and Hungary. That's where it kind of finishes off. And it carries on. After finishing this, I immediately ordered the next 2 books so I could finish off this journey, and it was just really, really lovely. It's a great portrait of Europe at that time, and he's really celebrating all these different elements of just the various cultures that he's encountering. And I think because he's he's a kind of student age, and even though he's dropped out of school, he's still telling people he's a student, and so they all kind of take pity on him. And so even though he's a kind of outsider, people are being really hospitable. So it's just really nice, and there are just these funny, interesting dynamics between him and the people he's meeting. So that was my favourite so far this year. To be strict and just talk about books I read from January through to March, my favourite would probably be the Duino Elegies by Rilke, and I've been really wanting to reread some Rilke this year. So when I saw this, I impulsively bought it and started reading it immediately. And I think the reason I loved it so much was because it was just a total change of pace in my reading at that time. I was reading quite a lot and reading it quite quickly. With this, I'd already read it before, so the impetus to just finish it wasn't quite as strong. And because it was a new to me translation by Vita and Edward Sackville West, I wanted to compare it to another translation that I'd already read. And so I ended up reading it technically like 2 or 3 times because I was jumping between translations. So it was really, really fun, and just a total change in pace, and it's kind of grounding as well, getting me back to what I really enjoy and the kind of comparative reading that I really enjoy. The next prompt then is number 3, any 1-star books or any least favourite books for the year. So far my least favourite book is a book that I read for the Booktube prize. And I've been meaning to make my rankings for the Booktube prize for the octafinals, and I just didn't really get around to it. Wasn't really in the mood. And so in this video, you'll be getting my bottom book and my top book, and the bottom book for the Booktube prize is my bottom book so far, and that's Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. And I think the main reason I just didn't like it was I couldn't help but think that the book was unfinished. It felt really rushed, and I just didn't buy the relationship between the characters. It seemed quite superficial to me. The plot was kind of quite ungrounded as well, and yeah, I don't know, just kind of structurally and stylistically, I didn't get the impression that the author really had made up their mind on what they wanted to do. And so all of that kind of together just kind of made me, yeah, it just came across as really forgettable and unfinished. And then it's about some pretty heavy subjects as well. And so when we throw that into the mix, I kind of got the impression that she wasn't doing those issues justice, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, overall, I thought it was a bit forgettable and just kind of unfinished. Moving on before it gets too negative. So number 4, most read genre so far. And I believe for the first quarter, a nice surprise is that it was poetry, which is yeah, is quite nice. Normally, poetry ends up being about a quarter to a third of the reading that I do. And I think particularly in March, I was reading a lot of novels, reading a lot of stuff for the Booktube Prize, and so I think I kind of just wanted to complement that with reading a lot more poetry as well. And so yeah, a lot of my reading this year has been poetry, and it's been really, really good. Prompt number 5 then is a book that surprised you, and then this is my top book for the Booktube Prize this year, and that was How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. And this is a kind of speculative fiction, sort of dystopian kind of thing, or maybe kind of almost post-apocalyptic. But one of the things I really liked about it was that these speculative elements are really coming out of kind of the issues of our day. So the premise of the book is that there's been this worldwide plague, but it's a kind of prehistoric disease, and it's only been reintroduced into the living population because of climate change, because of melting ice, which I thought was an interesting idea. And structurally it's loads and loads of connected short stories. And when I first started, I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it that much. I didn't like the first story in the book, the first story that kind of makes up this novel. But by the end of the book, I'm quite comfortable calling it a novel. It's definitely not. It's not a short story collection. It is a novel that's kind of presenting itself as a short story collection. But yeah, I think what really got me was, one, the way that he's exploring these ideas. And once I got that he's just going to keep on exploring these themes and these issues that we're still kind of living with, just to a different extent. Once I realised what he was doing and how far he was going with them and how he was thinking out what the repercussions in society would be, that really quite impressed me. What impressed me more was the human element and the way that people react to this, and that even though it's about these big ideas of death and disease and kind of human progress and the impact it has on the world, it's also a book about family and just about real, deep human relationships. And there's a book in, I think that's actually the second story or the third story in here, which is, essentially we've got this worldwide disease, people are dying, and it's really affecting children. And so some rich guy decides to turn, I'm trying to remember, I think it's an old prison, into like a fun park, and essentially a place where kids who are so sick that they are going to die, they go there with their families, and it's like their last chance to have fun before they die. And that story really, really got to me. That got me on the verge of crying in public. So that was, yeah, just it's a tremendous book, and even though it's not my favourite book so far this year, it's definitely something I would consider rereading. So yeah, I'd recommend that. It's a good book. Prompt number 6 then is a book that has come out in 2023 that you want to read but haven't yet. I don't really have anything for this. I might end up reading something that's come out this year, but yeah, I don't really have my eye out for anything. Prompt number 7, one goal you made that you're succeeding at. I think I'm doing okay with my goals this year. Initially, I was thinking of mammoths, but so far I think the only mammoth I've actually finished is the Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. I've read a few sort of bigger books, but they don't quite fit into the mammoth category. I've also been doing okay with reading more fiction from around the world as well. But I think on reflection, I set a goal to reread more books this year, and that's probably the one that I'm going to end up doing the best at. So The Luminaries was a reread for me. I also reread The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster, and then the Dueno Elegies was a reread, although not this translation, but it was a reread. I reread Ariel by Sylvia Plath, so one of my favourite writers, one of my all-time favourite poets, and so that was really, really good, and it was a joy to come to a poetry collection that I've read maybe 2 or 3 times before, and just reevaluate the poems, and yeah, they sat with me slightly differently this time, which was interesting. I might try and explain that a bit better in either in a wrap-up, or maybe I'll do a dedicated video about Ariel, we'll see. And I also reread the Book of Disquiet as well, which was quite similar to the Dueno Elegies, that it just helped slow me down in my reading. And it was yeah, quite rewarding, particularly at the beginning. Yeah, I think I finally made my mind up about that translation of the Book of Disquiet, so I might be trying out a different translation next time. But the next one then, number 8, one goal you made that you need to focus on. I had some really vague goals this year. One of them was just I had a list of cool authors that I wanted to check out, and some of those I've got to, whether it's just the odd poem or short story, and some of them I haven't got to yet. So there's one sort of novel here that I really want to get to this year, and that's Alone in Berlin by Hans Fallada, and I just haven't found the right time to fit this one in. I might read it in May, and I don't really have any clear plans about what I want to be doing in May, but if I'm in the mood, I might pick this up. Another one then is Georges Simenon. This is Death Threats and Other Stories. I think these are all Maigret stories, or Maigret, I'm not sure how you say it. And I have been dipping into short story collections and things this month. It's been a particular focus of mine, so I might see if I can read this month, but yeah, we'll see. And then another one that I just haven't got to yet out of that list of authors is Sir Thomas Browne, and so a little bit different to the other two. And particularly Urn Burial, which I think it actually has a proper name that's a bit harder to say. Is it this one? No, I can't find it. But anyway, I'd like to read some Sir Thomas Browne, or just Thomas Browne if you're being a bit more informal. Number 9, and this is the last prompt, new to you booktubers for 2023 that you would recommend. And I think the booktuber I've most recently subscribed to is it's Tatiana from Reading with Tatiana, or Tatiana. Forgetting which way around it is. But anyway, I'll have her channel down in the description, and from what I've gathered so far, she has quite a fun, quirky channel. So yeah, go check out her channel. And I think that's everything. I hope it wasn't too rambly, but yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope your reading year has been good so far. So I'll see you soon. Take care.